By the time this whole thing peaked, Caroline Mercer's $90,000 SUV was sitting on 4 ruined tires in the middle of my cornfield. Her attorney was dancing around the word liability, and the perfect little bubble of Sycamore Ridge Estates HOA was finally starting to leak. But if you really want to understand how we got there, you've got to see the first morning she decided my land was just a faster way to her comfortable life. My name is Ethan Ward, 47 years old, ex-corporate logistics guy who finally snapped one day and walked away from 25 years of conference calls, spreadsheets, and arguments about freight charges, took the savings I'd scraped together, and bought 80 acres out in Redstone County in Wyoming, a slice of rolling ground with good soil, a creek on the east side, an old farmhouse I fixed up myself, a barn I turned into a real workspace, and, most important, sitting just outside the invisible line of Sycamore Ridge Estates and the Sycamore Ridge Estates HOA. On their side of the line, manicured lawns, oversized houses, golf carts, people who paid $700 a month in HOA dues and acted like it made them nobility, led by Greg Mercer, longtime HOA president, and his wife Caroline, the HOA treasurer who treated the association budget like her personal kingdom. On my side, a half-mile private gravel drive tying into Farm Road 12, 20 head of cattle, corn and soybeans, and the promise that nobody could tell me what color to paint my front door. About 6 months before the spike strips, I was checking my cows one quiet morning when I heard an engine in the wrong place. Not on the road, not on my driveway, but inside my fields. I turned and there it was, a white SUV carving diagonal through my 3-month-old corn like it was a public shortcut, mud flying, stalks snapping, the driver never slowing down before disappearing toward the back fence by Sycamore Ridge Estates. I just stood there, stunned, that cold feeling of realizing someone has looked at your property lines and decided they don't apply to them. 2 days later, same thing, same SUV, more damage. The third time, I parked my truck right in her path and waited. She came roaring in, slammed on the brakes, rolled the window down, and I finally met Caroline Mercer in person, designer sunglasses, perfect hair, expression like I was an inconvenient speed bump. "Ma'am, this is private property," I said, trying to keep my voice calm even though I was furious. "You can't drive through here." She actually laughed. "There's an easement," she said, flicking a hand at my field. "From the 60s, it's in the county records. This is a through route. I'm allowed. I own this land," I told her, jaw tight. "There's no easement on my deed. You need to stop." She slid her sunglasses back on, gave me the kind of smile people give toddlers who don't understand the rules. "You're new," she said. "Check the paperwork, sweetheart. This road's been here longer than you." Then she swung around my truck, crushed another swath of corn, and vanished. I'm not a hothead, so instead of doing something stupid, I went to my attorney, Alan Pierce, the guy who'd handled my purchase. I asked him to dig through everything and tell me if there was any recorded easement. 2 days later he called and said, "Ethan, your title is clean. No easements, no rights of way. Anyone driving through is trespassing. Period." Armed with that, I figured the problem would be simple to fix. It wasn't. Caroline didn't stop, she doubled down. Every morning around 7:15, every evening around 5 o'clock, she cut across my land like it was hers. I started documenting dates, times, photos of tire tracks and flattened rows. Her route ran close to where some of my cows grazed, including one of my best heifers, Ruby, heavy with calf. I put up big reflective "No trespassing" signs along her path. She ignored them. With Alan's help, I sent a certified cease and desist letter detailing the trespass and damage, warning that if she kept going, we'd go to court. A few days later, I watched her tear that envelope open, glance at the letter, rip it to pieces, throw it into my field, and drive off honking. That's when I called the sheriff. Deputy Logan Hart came out, early 30s, still looking like he believed in people. I showed him everything, tracks, signs, photos, logs, and he said he'd talk to her. When he came back, he looked annoyed. "She says you're harassing her," he told me. "She showed me documents she claims are easement papers. I can't verify them. She also says you've threatened her." I hadn't threatened her, and Alan had already confirmed there was no easement. Logan believed me, but he spread his hands. "Right now this looks like a civil property dispute. Unless I catch her in the act and she refuses to leave, there's not much I can do criminally. You're probably looking at court. Meanwhile, Caroline kept driving, and then it stopped being just about corn. One cold morning, she came across my land faster than usual, horn blaring the whole way. Ruby was too close to her route, got spooked by the noise and sudden appearance of the SUV, bolted, slipped, and crashed. By the time I found her, she'd lost the calf. Dr. Keller, my vet, came out, examined her, and wrote it plainly, stress-induced miscarriage. That piece of paper was $4,500 on top of the emotional punch to the gut. I filed another report. More letters, more engine noise, and something in me finally hardened. If I was going to fight, it would be legally, but I wasn't going to be her doormat anymore. First move, I put up a heavy steel ranch gate across her cut-through, chained and padlocked. Installed it on a Friday night and thought maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. Saturday morning, I was halfway through my coffee when I heard her engine, then the screech of brakes, then the unmistakable sound of chain being cut. I ran out and caught Caroline with bolt cutters in hand, snapping my lock like it was a twist tie, shoving the gate open, climbing back into her SUV, flipping me off, and driving through my field. Unaware she'd just starred in a perfect HD clip on the trail camera pointed right at her. I called Deputy Hart again. He watched the footage, winced, and said he'd file for criminal property damage, but also told me bluntly, "Ethan, this is escalating. You need Alan fully involved." He wasn't wrong. Within a week, I got a letter from a shiny firm in Riverside City representing Caroline, accusing me of blocking an established access route, threatening to sue unless I removed obstructions from the easement. Alan responded with title records and documentation, making it clear there was no easement and that she was trespassing and destroying property. She responded by shifting to the Sycamore Ridge Estates HOA lawyer, who claimed the HOA had historical access rights and community access agreements. Alan ran the numbers and told me if we took it to court, it'd likely be 18 months and around $30,000 in legal fees, even if we won. While that storm brewed, Caroline went from arrogant to malicious, honking all the way across my land, gunning it through the muddiest sections, clearly trying to get a reaction out of me. Instead of taking the bait, I started researching how far I could legally go to protect my property without crossing into dangerous trap territory. That's when I learned about professional retractable spike strips, the kind law enforcement uses, designed to puncture tires without flipping vehicles. I didn't just order them and wing it. I went to Alan. "Is it legal?" I asked, "to deploy spike strips on my own land to stop a repeat trespasser, if I warn her?" He thought for a long moment, then said, "It's a gray area, but here's the principle. You can't set a trap meant to hurt people. You can use reasonable measures to protect property, especially after repeated warnings, if what you're doing just disables vehicles. But you'll need overwhelming notice, lots of signs, one last certified letter spelling it out, photos, GPS data, and you tell the sheriff ahead of time. You'll probably get sued, but I'd like our chances." So that's what I did. I ordered 3 retractable spike strips. I upgraded the camera system again. More angles, night vision, motion detection. I ordered 30 reflective metal signs that read, "Private property, trespassers will be prosecuted. Vehicle deterrent devices in use. Tire damage will occur." Then I planted those signs every 50 feet along Caroline's route, photographed each one with timestamps and GPS. After that, with Alan's help, I sent one last certified letter. 6 months of trespass, crop damage, the destroyed gate, Ruby's miscarriage and Dr. Keller's report, photos of the signs, and a very clear notice that spike strips were now deployed on that path. She signed for it. I kept the receipt. Her lawyer responded by accusing me of terroristic threats, hinting at restraining orders, trying to scare me off. Instead, I went to Deputy Hart, laid everything out, and walked him along the route. He read the signs, saw the cameras, listened to the story from start to finish. "Off the record," he said quietly, "I don't blame you. On the record, I have to tell you to be careful. If she gets hurt, it'll be messy. But with this much warning, and with those strips being the same model we use, I can't say you're breaking the law." That was as close to a green light as I was going to get. Sunday night, I laid out the strips, 3 sets about 30 yards apart, tested them at low speed with my old farm truck. Tires popped, but the truck stayed controllable. Monday morning at 7:15, I was in the barn, coffee in hand, eyes on multiple camera feeds, heart pounding. At 7:14, Caroline's white SUV slid into view at the tree line. On the monitors, I watched her roll past sign after sign, not slowing, not even tapping the brakes. She hit the first strip, pop, pop on the front tires, kept going, then the rear tires, pop, pop, and only then did the brake lights flare. By then she was already rolling on dying rubber and bending rims, and momentum carried her over the second and third strips before she finally stopped, perfectly framed in the middle of my cornfield, on 4 destroyed tires and mangled wheels. I saved all the footage to multiple devices, then headed out with a folder full of documents. By the time I reached her, she'd walked around the SUV, realized what had happened, and was screaming into her phone. When she saw me, she snapped, accusing me of trying to kill her, calling the strips murder weapons, threatening to ruin me. I recorded as I calmly laid out the facts: 6 months of trespass, destroyed crops, a broken gate, a dead calf, repeated written warnings, clearly posted signs, spiked strips designed to damage vehicles, not people. Deputy Hart pulled up in his cruiser, and Caroline instantly shifted into victim mode, running to him, sobbing about attempted vehicular homicide on public land. He listened, then turned to me. I handed him the folder, the mail receipts, the photos, the vet report. He read, nodded, walked over, and looked at one of the signs himself. Then he came back, opened his citation book, and asked, in front of both of us, "Mr. Ward, do you want to press charges for trespassing and property damage?" I thought about Ruby, about the gate, about 6 months of being treated like I was trespassing on my own land. "Yes," I said, "I do." He cited Caroline for criminal trespass, noted potential additional charges for the gate, added Ruby's miscarriage to the report with Dr. Keller's documentation. A tow truck from Reynolds Recovery, driven by Roy, came out, winched the SUV up, and estimated several $1,000s in damage. Caroline paid with shaking hands. Before Logan Hart drove her home, she tossed one last week threat over her shoulder: "The HOA will destroy you." I watched the cruiser and flatbed leave, walked back to my barn, and for the first time in months, my land was quiet. The quiet didn't last long. A few days later, I got a certified letter from Caroline's new attorney in Riverside City, accusing me of reckless endangerment, demanding I pay for her SUV repairs, and asking for $42,000 in emotional damages. I forwarded it to Alan. He called sounding almost cheerful. "This is good," he said. "Now we counter." We added up 6 months of trespass, crop loss, the destroyed gate, Ruby's calf, my time and stress. The total came to about $28,000 in actual damages. Alan drafted a response that dismantled her claims point by point and dropped our counterclaim on the table with all the documentation attached. Then the legal side went quiet, but the neighborhood didn't. My neighbor Tom Reyes, who farms soy along my southern border, called one afternoon. "You're famous in Sycamore Ridge," he said, half laughing. The Spike Strip story had hit their Facebook groups and local gossip. People were arguing in comment sections, some calling me a lunatic, others quietly cheering. More importantly, Tom told me, Monica Hale, the assistant treasurer on the HOA board, heard that Caroline might have used HOA funds to pay some of her legal bills against me. Because Monica had access to parts of the books, she started digging deeper, saw enough that she called an emergency board meeting. Greg tried to shut it down, said it was personal drama, but the rest of the board voted to bring in a forensic accountant. The audit was ugly. According to what drifted back to me through Tom, the accountant found that Caroline, as HOA treasurer, had allegedly siphoned around $60,000 over 2 years, spa days coded as community wellness, shopping trips listed as seasonal decor, HOA checks written to vendors who were really doing work at the Mercer house, even some of her lawyer bills misfiled as association legal expenses. The board suspended both Caroline and Greg, filed a report with the sheriff, and suddenly, my Spike Strips were the least of her problems. The easement documents she'd waved at Deputy Hart never existed. The community access agreement was pure fiction. Greg resigned from the board and later filed for divorce, claiming he hadn't known what she was doing with the money. Maybe that was true. Maybe it was convenient. Either way, I stopped caring. The Sycamore Ridge Estates HOA elected a new board, people who actually talked about transparency like they meant it, And they even sent me a formal apology letter acknowledging that their leadership had abused its power. My trespassing case hit court in mid-April. Caroline, now on her third lawyer, took a plea deal. Guilty to criminal trespass, property damage reduced to a misdemeanor, and a court order to pay me $8,500 in restitution for the destroyed gate, crop loss, and Ruby's vet bill, plus 12 months of probation and a condition that she stay at least 500 feet from my property. She never once looked at me. I took that money, added my own, and ran a serious fence along my western boundary. 8-foot posts, solid gates, a clear, undeniable line. It cost more than the restitution, but when I leaned on that fence and looked out, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Safe and heard. A couple of months later, Caroline was formally charged with embezzlement and fraud, staring down fines, restitution to the HOA, and the kind of probation that sticks to your record for a long time. My farm, meanwhile, slipped back into the rhythm I'd moved there for. Corn growing where her tracks used to scar the field, cattle grazing without horns blaring twice a day, the only engines on my land belonging to me. Some evenings now, I sit on my porch with a mug of coffee, watch the sun drop behind the fence line, and replay the whole story, not out of spite, but as a reminder. Caroline didn't start out believing she was above the rules. She got there one unchallenged boundary at a time. Every neighbor who decided it wasn't worth the fight helped build the monster. All I did was finally put a line in the ground that hurt to hit, and then refused to move it. I never laid a hand on her. I didn't take a wrecking ball to her house, didn't key her car, didn't do any of the petty revenge the internet drools over. I documented, warned, stayed within the law, and when it was time, I let her own choices collide with her own consequences. That's what made the lawyers back down, what made the judge side with me, and what let me sleep at night. The spike strips sit in my barn now, coiled like retired weapons, more symbol than tool. Around town, people tell the story like it's a small-town legend. The rancher, the HOA queen, and the day the shortcut died. And that's where I'll leave you, with a question rather than a punchline. When someone decides your boundaries don't matter, when they treat your home, your work, your family's security like it's just an inconvenience in their way, how far should you go to make them stop? Is it enough to trust slow courts and expensive lawyers? Or do we sometimes need our own spike strip moments? Firm, legal lines that finally make people like Caroline Mercer feel the weight of what they've been doing to everyone else.